Hi, everybody. It's Mike from Hear the Watchman. And today on the Watchman Report, we have someone who has been giving breaking intelligence for many years, stuff that you want to hear out there. Recently, as all of us are that are in this line of business, he was involved with some controversy. We're all past that now. Uh, and he's delivering the facts about stuff that you definitely want to hear. With us today, we have W. W, thank you for joining us.
Hey, good to talk to you there, Mike.
W, recently you went on Rogue Money and you had a powerful message about the heinousness of the corporate world and what goes on behind the scenes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, um, for me, there's plenty of things going on in the world, and obviously there's all sorts of drama, I guess, that's gone on since the beginning of the world. Anywhere you have power, there's behind-the-scenes dramas. And go back to Antony and Cleopatra, and the whole Bible's about controversies and power, positions of power over the people. And so nothing's exactly changed. And certainly the things that we've received in some of these revelations out in the public about these Moloch worshipers, and that maybe they never went away from thousands of years ago, where the Bible's talking about them making sacrifices on the hills, and now we find out that in the background maybe they're still around. So there's all sorts of dramas like that. But let me just, what I wanted to share with your audience. The people that are listening to a show like yours are people that want to be ahead of the curve. They want to kind of know what's coming. People that are reading scripture are looking for insights to be able to anticipate what's coming. And I always told my guys in my work previously, is that when I was training, I would tell you, the trick here is you need to anticipate. If you're not anticipating, you're going to get blindsided, and you're not going to do well. You have to try to anticipate what are the options, what are the variations, that you're going to be confronted with. And it's just like driving in traffic. Sometimes you're out in the country, and you have to be looking 5 miles ahead, 2 miles ahead, 1 mile ahead at the very least. Other times you're in town, and that's completely impossible, and you need to be watching 1 or 2 cars ahead besides the car that's right in front of you. So you have to try to anticipate a little bit. And it's almost, if you look at the leadership that you admire, guys that are actually doing it right, you'll oftentimes see one of the most important qualities they have is they're trying to alert you to things that are just ahead, not just 1 car ahead, but a couple cars ahead, but things that are outside the everyday thought patterns or vision of the average person. And so they're trying to jar them a little bit. Okay, but look up there, look forward, look at what's over there. And that way you can anticipate, be ahead of the curve a little bit, and not be caught by surprise. So I got to tell you about this friend of mine. I have a very close friend. We've known each other for decades and decades. And he's the head of aviation for one of the largest companies in the world. And we both have small car collections, and so we are pretty competitive about our cars. And so we talk pretty frequently. And the other day I was working on a project that I have in the hangar, and he is calling me, and I'm just buried. I can't really leave what I'm doing right that second. And he calls me like 5 times. So over and over the phone, I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world is he calling about? Must be important. So I drop what I'm doing, and I answer the phone. And, hey, bro, what's up? He says, boss, you won't believe it. You can't believe what happened. You just can't believe this. I'm like, what? No, you're not going to believe this. He says, I come into work, and this, you got to picture this. This is not just some riffraff guy. This is a guy that is the head of aviation for one of the largest companies in the world. He's very highly respected. He makes pretty well into 6 figures. And so he's not, easily excitable, and pretty steady at the wheel type of a guy. And so he's all, you can just tell by the way he's talking, it's all, pretty animated. And I was, thinking, probably the worst or something, but he's got my attention now. Well, no, just tell me what happened. What happened? He says, I came into work today and I got in the elevator, and as I was going up the elevator, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just washes over me. I just realized I'm getting fired today.
Wow.
I just out of nowhere, I'm getting fired today. I'm like, there's no way they're firing you. They can't afford to fire you. There's a lot of reasons they really can't. And he'd had a perfect evaluation a few weeks earlier, performance evaluation that the evaluator said was the first perfect evaluation he'd ever done in his career for 25 years. His skill sets, his knowledge are things that you don't learn in an instant. Very complex. They tried to see if they could bring somebody else to help cover for him in case something ever happened to him, and learned the hard way that you weren't going to teach somebody in months or a year to do his job. Even guys that already do this type of job, because where he does it, it's very unique. And so his skill sets are just, stuff that he's learned over decades that you're not going to easily go replace. So they'd be in trouble if anything happened to him. And, so I was like, there isn't a prayer. I even know the CFO. We had dinner here a while back. There's no way they want to do anything but to keep you around. They're sweating bullets that you eat right and take it easy. Say, no, you don't believe it. Listen, I just knew I was getting fired today.
So a premonition. A premonition.
He had a premonition, and it was so strong though. He says, I had to stop taking my breath. And so he gets up to his floor. Everything looks normal. He goes over, because he travels a lot. He doesn't have an office like everybody else. He's got kind of a cubicle in the main headquarters there, just off from where the CEO's office is and where the corporate attorneys are all at. So anyway, he goes to his desk, but it's so strong, and it gets stronger all morning, that he's actually kind of organizing his desk out. He's getting all of his stuff so that, because he has, model airplanes from, all these different manufacturers, these plaques. And so he's just getting his desk organized. He's getting ready to leave. He just says you just can't believe how compelling this was. And I've never had this happen in my whole life, he says. But he had this premonition, and it was so strong. So he decides, because when I said, well, was there anything that happened that led to this that made you think? He said, no, nothing. It just came to me. So he says it's so strong, and he's kind of rattled. He leaves for lunch early. I mean, they care less when he goes to lunch. I know, but he kind of follows the clock here. It must be a good example for the office. So he goes and leaves for lunch 20 minutes early. He goes to a place. He says, and I never drink. He and I'll have a beer once in a while. He says, I had a beer during lunch because I just had to calm my nerves. It was so. Right. He's trying to give me the emphasis of how strong this is. And so then he goes on the way back from lunch. He actually stops at one of these moving places and buys some boxes just in case, because he's got all of his airplanes and stuff, and he doesn't want to put them in something out of shipping, so he wants an actual for real good box and some packing material and all that. He goes to all this trouble. I mean, he's trying to tell me this was strong, man. This wasn't just a passing little thing. So he gets back to his office. And in the elevator, he's gone up to the office, and our friend who's CFO gets in with him, and he has kind of a grim look on his face. And they talk for just a moment or two, and he's, just something just isn't ringing right. He gets to his floor, and he sees the desks beside his desk. It's just papers kind of strewn about, and the chairs are off to the side. And there's the people aren't there right there. And the CEO sees him when he gets off the elevator, and one of the legal people is there. CFO or CEO says, hey, office for a minute. He's like, oh, shoot, this is it. I'm done. And the guy gets him in the office and says, look, we had to let the folks so-and-so and so-and-so go that sit in the desks immediately beside him on either side.
Wow.
They had let them go, their performance and stuff. They were both 15-year employees, and they had decided that they were letting them go. And so we're going to clear that area out there and actually make that whole area your office and move your secretary over there. You just need more help with what you're doing. And, here my friend is sure he's being fired.
Right.
Has felt that all morning, has got boxes in the car, and in fact he's getting acknowledgement of his value, and he's getting put in a more secure situation. He had a premonition, and the premonition actually applied to the people to his right and to his left, but it didn't apply to him.
Interesting.
So here he is. You just think about it. It's like, close, but not quite, missed it by that much. He had this premonition, and he was right that something was going to happen, but he got the detail just a smidge wrong. And, he got pretty worked up over it. But, so do you say that it was a hit or a miss on the premonition? He was pretty close. He just happened to misinterpret its impact on him a little bit. But he had a real, I think, as a valid premonition. Now, just think of all of our listeners out there.
Right.
And they're always, it tends to be something, we church people, we're trying to be sensitive to things going on in this other world beside us, and the world around us, and we're trying to, anticipate. Everybody's, all into this prophecy, this is what's happening next, and that's what's happening next, and the latest guru says this is what's going to happen, and so they're all keyed up about, being ready for what's happening next. So let me tell you this other thing, though. So that same evening, really one of my other closest friends. I don't have that many guys I deal with. I'm pretty private for the most part, because I don't have a lot of free time with some of the projects I'm on. So one of my other very, very close friends, though, a real brother, who, now I'll mess all your listeners up, who's also Muslim. He calls me up, and he's on the other side of the world. And he says, oh, I got you. Okay, I got to tell you what just happened. I'm like, what? Oh, man, you're not going to believe this. So he had been working, and I had given a little bit of assistance a while back on a meeting that he had to do down in Greece, in Corfu, with some very wealthy folks. On their corporation, which is also one of the largest companies in the world of its type, largest in Africa of its type, multi-billion-dollar operation. They were flying from France, I believe, down to their meeting. And so this was a very important meeting, because they needed some bridge money. They needed like $1.2 billion in bridge money. And so because his boss, the CEO of the company, has some girlfriends in kind of every place they go, it seems like. But so he's spending extra time with one, and that pushed off a meeting with another one in the afternoon, and then he hadn't seen another one. And so instead of leaving the day before for this very important meeting, they didn't go when they were supposed to. In fact, they didn't even leave that evening. They changed the schedule so that they could just fly in and go straight to this meeting, where they actually, this other group has got financial people to look at the paperwork, and they've got other board members on this country fund that's going to loan this money.
That's a big amount of money.
Well, in this crowd, it's big to anybody, but it's probably every day they're loaning out, at the very least every week, sums like that on an interim basis. That's how they make their money, and they're getting higher than average interest or income, because they're getting a piece of the company, or they're getting something, because it's it's emergency money. That's kind of how they do it. So they have this very important meeting, and because of the extra time the CEO is spending with the girlfriends, the chief pilot is having to change flight plans. So they had a flight plan for the morning, then he had to change it to the afternoon, then they had to change it to the evening, and now he's being told to change it to the following morning. And they're flying around a very expensive jet. They've got a dozen people on the jet that all have to change their schedules, and it can be pretty complex. But your CEO and you got big money going. I mean, you have to picture these are the kind of people. When he goes to a restaurant in New York, he'll give the maitre d' $10,000, making sure he gets the table that he wants for his entourage, and then other high-profile people, they're in there, and they'll all be meeting and doing whatever. He might drop 20 grand or more in an evening just to do it. It's a crowd that most of your listeners are just it's hard to even fathom how that works, but it's relatively common for folks in this precise type of a position. It just it juggles your brain. They fly into Davos for a meeting or for a Grove meeting or a Bilderberg meeting or something like that. And then there's so many jets there that the pilots have to fly their jet out to another city somewhere in the area and park the jet and cool their heels for a week because you can't get all the jets in one place. It's just, it's hard to comprehend. And so anyway, my guy says, I says, well, how did the meeting go? He says, no, you gotta understand. Listen, here's what happened. Oh my gosh. And this is a pretty steady guy too. I mean, this is if you knew his military background and everything else, he's talking in a high pitched voice and he's all amped up. And I'm like, bro, relax. Okay, so what happened? Tell me what happened. And so he says, we headed out to the jet. We had the limos. We're all at the jet. We're loaded on. The co-pilot has the jet running. We're on the jet. The pilot isn't there. And so finally, they can't get an answer. He's not answering his room. He's not answering his cell phone. So he gets back in one of the limos. He races back to the hotel, which is just down off just outside the airport. And he's calling the manager of the hotel to check and see if he's in the restaurant or what's going on. He gets there, and the concierge is going with him and a manager going up to the room. They open up the room, and there's their pilot, face down on the floor, hand on the briefcase, dead.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
And what was wild here is that when my guy's trying to explain what's going on and everything else, the stewardess for that flight, who was a gal that wasn't their normal stewardess, the normal stewardess and the pilot were actually very close, and so this was not the normal gal. And she says in the background, oh my gosh, the last thing he told me last night, he said this job is going to kill him because of all these changes. It's just going to kill him. It's just so hectic for him. It's so traumatic, to do this. People don't realize how hard it is to change takeoff times and landing times and get the clearances and get the flight plan filed. And this isn't some old guy. This is a guy in his late 40s. He's in great shape. He was a fighter pilot for, one of the larger militaries in the world, not U.S. And he had, just imagine, he had a premonition of some sort. He says, this job is going to kill me. And compare that with my friend where it just washed over him. He knew he was going to get fired. Turns out people right beside him. My friend, where he thought he was going to get fired, he missed it by that much. It wasn't about him. It was the people around him, but it still affected him. Something was going to affect him related to the firings. This guy, he said the last words that anybody knew that had actually talked to him, this job's going to kill me. He had a premonition. And he was exactly right.
Wow. Well,
but and I'm not, and it may sound a little bit trite, Mike, but think about this. He got it right, but was it saving knowledge even? Did he take it seriously? Was it, something that could have helped him? And then we think about all these people, we're looking for the latest information from somebody else who got the message from God that this is going to happen or that's going to happen or something else. And or they have, some premonition themselves in the middle of the night. But is the information, did they interpret it properly? Have they got a proper understanding? So you go into Scripture, and there's lots and lots of examples, but I was thinking of Paul when they were in a storm and the boat's being beat up, and some of the crew had decided that they were going to get in the lifeboat and pretend they were setting some additional anchors, but they were headed to shore and they were just leave everybody else to die. And Paul had this premonition that if they left and did what they were going to do, that nobody could be saved, not them or anybody on the boat. And so he told the centurion that was his guard, who was, taking him to Rome for trial. Right. He told the centurion, if they succeed in doing what they're doing, everybody will be lost. There'll be nobody can be saved. So the centurion made sure that the boat was cut away, that was the lifeboat, and everybody stayed on the boat. And Paul said, that if everybody stayed, nobody would die. So he got it right. He had some kind of a premonition, an angelic nudge, that he had an insight, and then he also had the correct solution. What we have to think about when we see and get a nudge from God, or we have people that are influenced, you have to make it personal, and you have to have some kind of for real divine direction. The market's going up, the market's going down, buy silver, buy gold, buy food, whatever. What God may be saying in a more generic way about things that are coming may not be precisely what is the correct thing for you personally to do. And what God's telling you to do may not have any application to the people beside you, because your situations are enough different. It may in some general sense have an application, but when these messages from God, these divine insights are coming, it does have to be personalized to you and your situation. What might be right for the person beside you may have little or no application to you, because God has a different design for how you're going to have to prepare, get out of the way, or do something. And so that's where you have to seek God's direction personal way. And if you're not doing that, it's easy to get thrown off. My guy went and bought boxes, had a beer, took an early lunch, and it was not about him in the way that he thought. He had the right information, he had the wrong interpretation. How many times in the Bible do we see people, look at Joseph? The Pharaoh had a dream, but he didn't have anybody that could properly interpret the dream. And then in order to guarantee that somebody didn't give him a wrong interpretation, he wouldn't even tell anybody what the dream was. They had to both tell him what the dream was that he had and what the interpretation was, so that the soothsayers, they wanted him to tell him what the dream was, then they tell him what the answer is. No, you tell me what the dream was and the answer. I don't want to hear any BS. I don't want some false interpretation. He figured anybody that's in tune with God would be able to both know what the dream was and what the interpretation was. And that's kind of where we're at here with us. There's so many people giving advice to the Christian community, the church community, about what we're supposed to do next and how we're supposed to do it. But different parts of the country, of the world, are going to be under different timing. Even if you have the information exactly right, timing is key too, because where and when it affects you might be different than half a world away.
Absolutely, W. You're dead on, and I think what we need to do, all the listeners, I mean, it's refreshing to hear you talk about this, W. It really is, and I'll tell you that we have been dumbed down by the mainstream media and everybody else out there to when you talk about you have a premonition, the people want to think that you need a tinfoil hat, that you're out of your mind crazy, but you're absolutely right. In the prophecy world, many of the guys that we talk about things to come. We don't know when it's going to come. Timing is everything. We feel that it is going to come, but we don't know when it's going to come. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, and so let me give you a different thing that also happened. About I don't know, 8 months or so ago, I happened to be walking out of one of my banks, and a former business associate was walking in, and this was a person that he just wasn't quite playing things the way that I like to, and so I'd kind of gone out of my way to withdraw there. I just felt that it was appropriate, and I wasn't throwing any stones, wasn't being a jerk about it, but I just didn't, we do business differently. And so, but I had a nice conversation for a couple of minutes, and he tells me, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it, I almost died. I fell off the boat. Another partner of mine, I had sold him a boat. So he fell off the boat, and it was night, and there was nobody around. He couldn't find a ladder to get out in the marina, and finally somebody saw him and pulled him out. And so he said it was very traumatic. It was very upsetting, and almost lost his life. That was the conversation we were having, and we talked about a couple little things that better know where the ladder is next time, pay closer attention, and that sort of thing. And he says, yeah, boy, I was sure I was dead. And I said, well, I mean, you could be if you don't, you just gotta, respect the water. You can't get sloppy around the water. You gotta always treat it the same way, because it doesn't know whether your mind's on something else. You miss a step or whatever. It doesn't care. It's it is what it is. So here a couple months back, I get a call from I think 6 weeks back from another business associate, and he says, did you hear what happened? I said, no, what are you talking about? Oh my gosh, so and so. You didn't hear? No, what's he doing? What's going on? He's dead. Dead? What are you talking about? He fell off his boat during the evening the other night and drowned. And they found him floating. And I'm like, really? Oh my gosh. Young guy, in his late 40s. And that was the last conversation that we had was about this other incident where he'd fallen off the boat.
Wow.
He had this, and his whole conversation with me when we had talked was how, he thought about his business situation and his kids and everybody, and he's out there, he's gulping water, and he wasn't sure he was going to make it, and he was thinking about how things, what he had to do to get things sorted out. And his family had called me shortly after that, wanted to know if I could do anything to help them to, if I wanted to buy any of the business stuff or like that. And I just said, I just buried right now, and I just can't. And I knew it was very convoluted, and I just didn't have time to unravel where he had things. And here he had this forewarning, even to the point of nearly dying. 6 months later, when it actually happened, his situation was every bit as convoluted or worse. He had, in another way of looking at it, he had some shots across the bow, if you will, to prepare, to be aware, and they were not enough to jar him to where he needed to be. And I think in his case, he was somebody that enjoyed, a drink here and there, and I think that some of that may have contributed to why he ended up, falling in the water.
Right.
So even lifestyle things. Sometimes we get real, not even just nudges, but clear warnings from the divine, from our Father, and if you don't heed them, you can be toast. In the case of the centurion, he heeded what Paul said and took measures to guarantee that what Paul saw as a premonition, a pre-warning of what would happen, didn't get the opportunity to happen, and everyone was saved, even though the ship itself was lost. We have to have our brains turned on enough to take the right action. So, when everybody's looking, what do you see coming in the financial world? What do you see coming in the political world? What do you see coming, with war and everything else? Well, those are answers that plenty of people have an answer to, and some of our leadership may be giving you exactly the right answer. You yourself may very well have precisely, either by intuition, premonition, some divine insight, a dream, a vision, the exact information of what's coming. But then you need the rest of it, the interpretation, and that has to be divine also. And this is what you, not your neighbor, not your relative, not your closest friend, what you are to do. And that makes it pretty personal. It puts the responsibility, right squarely on each of your listeners' shoulders. But see, my reason for sharing this, Mike, with what's coming, with what's ahead, my personal premonition is very few, even of your listeners, are going to make it all the way through, or even partially through what's coming. We have to make it personal. And to the extent that you do make it personal and you get some divine insight and instruction, you have a greater likelihood of not just getting through, but getting through correctly for you and your family. A lot of the people that we're talking to are in positions in their own family where others that can't care for themselves or watch out are looking to them to provide the right kind of insight, protection, direction, etc. And so the weight is on their shoulders to get it right. And these are dicey times that we're in. It's going to be getting dicier by the week and month ahead. And situation normal type of a response, it'll sort itself out, blah, blah, blah. That's just not going to cut it when things start to really come off the rails, not that far down the road.
I couldn't agree with you more, W. And, I think you bring up such a valid point, and I have spoken to my listeners about this before. God speaks to us, and the problem is so many of us are so busy talking to him that we're not listening to him. And if you listen to him, he gives us these gifts. He gives us these premonitions of what's to come. And we are in a time where we're facing just ever changing. Every single day, there's something new out there. There's some new satanic or demonic attack. There's some new elitist agenda out there. And it's important that you listen to the premonitions, and it's important that you listen to people like W and the other guests that we have on our show here, because they're in tune. They're the ones that are out there. They're on the front line. And W, I got to tell you, brother, it is so nice to have your voice back in the game, quoting scripture and talking like this. It's just truly amazing. I'm just so blessed that you rode out the storm.
Well, I consider it a storm. I have a particular viewpoint, and I guess for those that aren't aware, some people were concerned about whether or not the end of the world had come or was about to come. Back at the Ebola thing, and I said on the numbers, based on what I see, this is not the end of the world by any stretch of the country. It's not correct on the numbers. The timing isn't right, and it doesn't agree with me on technical basis. It also doesn't agree with me on spiritual basis. We now are a few years down the road, and I'm not trying to say I told you so, but I think it is a cause for people to take a deep breath and go, okay, what are people saying around them? Don't have to knife anybody in the back, but it is personal. You got opinions from different people, insight from different people. I had a particular viewpoint on it. I don't claim to be a prophet. I wasn't going on some prophetic message. I was going based on the numbers and watching these people work that are manipulating our country and our lives, and it wasn't gelling. It wasn't agreeing with their prior patterns of disclosure and ways of doing things. I was right, is, I guess the way I would put it. And the others, I think, should take a deep breath, reevaluate, because people are vulnerable. We're talking to people with real lives, with families, with concerns. And so do we want to just get out there and beat the drum and get everybody all amped up over nothing? What if Paul, had gotten all frantic and upset and hadn't got the message quite right? There's 300 people on the ship, and he alone had the correct revelation from God and then took the action in the right way. He had the centurion, which was the person, the correct authority. And the centurion acted on what Paul said, because the centurion had come to understand over time, with other things that had happened prior to this, that Paul was in direct contact with God, that he was a minister of God. He had a history. In the intelligence world, we have a term, known and trusted. So I have a handful of people around me that I have known for a very long time, and that they know how I think, I know how they think, I know where they're coming from. If my life was on the line, I would trust them with my life, because we have a history together. The person that fell off the boat and drowned, I would not have trusted my life or affairs to him, because I had come to determine that based on things that had happened, that was not a person that I would put in that kind of a position. So over time, we get the opportunities to pick and choose who we're listening to and who we're not. And in this kind of a situation, I go back to, there's a lot of people, they may have information right, they may have great information, they may have insight, they may have facts and details. At the end of the day, is it saving knowledge? And are they hearing correctly from God, from God's servant? Are they correctly interpreting the Word of God? Are they, even if they have a premonition, are they that close but missed it by that much?
Yeah, you're right, W. Listen, we're out of time today, but brother, thank you so much for joining us. And please stay on the line with me, W, after I sign us out here today. I have a couple of questions for you. Folks, thank you for joining the Watchman Report today. What an amazing show to hear W talk again, to hear his voice again, and look at what he's speaking about. Pay attention to it. We're going to have him back on the show again with some other information for you. Until then, I need you to do something. Please go to www.hearthewatchman.com. We have our conference coming up August 18th through 20th in Boise, Idaho at the Riverside Hotel. It's going to be off the hook. It is a great gathering of the men and women who will be telling you the truth about what's going on, preparing you spiritually and physically for what's to come. Don't miss out on it. We don't have a lot of seats left. Get on there today. Get your reservations, and we'll see you there. Until I see you next time here on the Watchman's Report, God bless each and every one of you, and we'll see you next time.